We will raise Canada's price on carbon pollution, rising by $15 a tonne starting in 2023 and rising to 170 Canadian dollars per tonne by 2030.
On April 1st, April Fool's Day, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is raising the federal carbon tax from its current $50 per tonne of greenhouse gas emissions to $65 per tonne of greenhouse gas emissions. So 30% hike, on its way to $170 per tonne of emissions in 2030. Now, the carbon tax this year will raise the cost of gasoline by about 3 cents a litre. Of the total price of gasoline, right now 14.31 cents is going to be due to the federal carbon tax. But it doesn't just raise the cost of gasoline. It raises the cost of 22 forms of fossil fuel energy, including natural gas. And that's the reason why when the federal government raises the carbon tax, it raises the cost of almost everything. Because almost everything we transport, grow, manufacture, or create uses fossil fuel energy. Now, the Trudeau government says that under the carbon tax it's devised for people, and people pay it in 7 of the 10 provinces. The other provinces have provincial plans approved by the federal government. But for those in the 7 provinces that pay the federal tax, 80% of them actually end up better off financially. And their argument is that the climate action incentive payments that are part of that plan that go to people paying the tax more than make up for the cost of the increased cost of the carbon tax. But the Parliamentary Budget Officer, Yves Giroux, who is an independent, nonpartisan financial watchdog on parliamentary spending, says that's not accurate. He put out a report this week that said, in fact, in the 7 provinces where people pay the carbon tax, now that's Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. In those 7 provinces, people paying the carbon tax, the average family actually is going to pay hundreds of dollars more per year in taxes than they get back in rebates. And that will rise to well over $1,000 in every one of those provinces by 2030, except for Alberta, where it will be well over $2,000. Now, the reason for the different numbers from the Parliamentary Budget Officer is that he says what the federal government fails to do in assessing the costs of the carbon tax to people who pay it is that they don't look at the negative impact of the carbon tax on the Canadian economy. And he says when you do that, in other words, when you do a full analysis, 80% of the people paying it don't end up better ahead. In fact, 60% of the people paying it end up worse. And that the carbon tax only works as the federal government claims it does for about 40% of the people who pay it. And those are people generally with lower incomes. So the upshot of all this is pretty simple. When the Trudeau government announced the carbon tax in 2019, and they told us they'd come up with a tax where 80% of the people who pay it will end up richer, I think a lot of us went, gee, that sounds too good to be true. Now, the upshot in 2023 is that we now know it was too good to be true. I'm Lorrie Goldstein of Sun Media. We're always interested in hearing your views, and please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and our YouTube channel.